For some reason, Jackie Brown is a little bit of an odd duck when it comes to Quentin Tarantino's excellent filmography. It's not really talked about or as respected as some of the director's other works, and that's such a shame because it is a terrifically crafted movie and one of the most entertaining in his entire filmography. And as such, it absolutely deserves just as much attention as anything else the director has put out. So, with that in mind, I'm Josh from WhatCulture.com, and these are 20 things you probably missed in Jackie Brown. Number 20. The casting director is actually named Jackie Brown. Unless you paid very close attention to the film's opening credits, there is a little thing in there that is very easily missed. And that's that, during the credits scene, we actually get to see that one of the casting directors on the movie is actually named Jackie Brown, albeit with a slightly different spelling. Now, this isn't a gag, as IMDb indeed reveals Jackie Brown to be a real Hollywood casting director with 60 credits to a name on movies such as Boys in the Hood, Cool Runnings, Billy Madison, and Friday prior to working on Jackie Brown. Brown has sometimes gone by her married name of Jackie Brown Carmen, though evidently chose not to do it for this movie, and you can probably guess why. It's a pretty good little gag, isn't it? Number 19, Tarantino's voice cameo. Now, it's no surprise to learn that Tarantino, of course, enjoys making cameos in all of the movies that he's directed, but his cameo in Jackie Brown is actually a little bit sneakier and only comes in the form of the director's voice. In particular, when Jackie gets an answering machine message at home, the voice of the machine is actually Tarantino himself, who says, "You have one message sent at 8:06 p.m. The fidelity of the sound recording is muffled just enough that it's not immediately obvious as Tarantino's voice, and to make it even funnier, he actually adopts a robotic tenor during the recording, which is just kind of funny. Number 18, Jackie drives the same car as Pulp Fiction's Butch. Throughout the film, we see Jackie driving a 1980 Honda Civic, which is very interesting because that's actually the very first car that Quentin Tarantino ever bought. And more interesting yet, Tarantino has actually included that car in 3 of his movies so far, which you might actually know if you've seen the other Tarantino movies that we've done within this series so far, so thank you if you have checked all of those out. And a few years before he made Jackie Brown, he also had Butch drive a white 1980 Honda Civic in Pulp Fiction. Additionally, the car is also seen parked outside of the My Oh My strip club in Kill Bill Volume 2 for just a few moments. Number 17, the significance of Sid Hagues' cameo. Now, if you recognize the judge presiding over Jackie's case in the movie, that's actually because he's played by none other than Sid Hague. And while you might know the actor from his collaborations with Rob Zombie, Tarantino actually cast the actor in the film for one majorly specific reason. That being that he'd previously starred as the white villain in a number of exploitation/blaxploitation films opposite Pangria throughout the 1970s, such as Coffee, Black Mama, White Mama, and Foxy Brown. And Greer apparently didn't even know about this casting until she arrived on set to see Hague there, and apparently burst out laughing at the weird team-up. As for Hague himself, this actually wasn't his first time dealing with Tarantino, as he was originally offered the role of Marcellus Wallace in Pulp Fiction, but that, of course, eventually went to Ving Rhames, and history was made. Number 16. Samuel L. Jackson says the word motherfucker more than in any other movie. Samuel L. Jackson has said the word motherfucker so many times across his illustrious film career that it's practically become the actor's catchphrase at this point. But it's Pulp Fiction where the actor definitely made an artistry out of saying the word, where he said it a total of 26 times. Yet for the pair's subsequent collaboration in Jackie Brown, they evidently set out to outdo that record and try to beat it. So throughout Jackie Brown, Jackson's Ordell Robbie says mother a stonking 37 times, easily topping Pulp Fiction as the most times he's ever said the word in a single movie, and that record holds to this very day. Number 15, Max lies about his age. Bail bondsman Max Cherry is one of the most memorable characters in the movie, but here's something about him that you might have missed. Did you know that he actually lies about his age at one point? Near the end of the movie, Max tells Jackie, "I'm 56 years old. I can't blame anyone for anything I do." But when we get a brief look at Max's ID, it actually says that he was born in 1948, and with the plot taking place in 1995, that would make him 46 or 47 years old. And while it's entirely possible that this was simply a mistake on the part of the prop department, given that actor Robert Foster was himself in his mid-50s when Jackie Brown was being filmed, he might have simply lied about it on his ID in character. And that explanation is probably the most likely. I mean, think about it. This guy is a bail bondsman who comes into contact with criminals, so it kind of makes sense that he might have a fake ID to protect him from ever being fully discovered. At least that's the headcanon here, because it kind of makes more sense than him just lying to his love interest, right? Number 14, Mira Savino's out of focus cameo. In the movie's first act, keep an eye on a blonde woman who's just out of focus in a few shots behind Jackie Brown, as that's none other than Mira Savino, who the year prior won a Best Supporting Actress Oscar for her performance in Mighty Aphrodite, and was Tarantino's romantic partner at the time that Jackie Brown was being shot. Savino is glimpsed for just a few shots behind Pangria in these scenes, and while she doesn't get a credit in the film's credits, she does get a thank you towards the end. Number 13, the Cocaine Inn. Neon signs have always been a funny way for directors to sneak in hidden messages into their movies. After all, it always looks pretty funny when you have a little bit of the word illuminated, but then some letters grayed out so it kind of spells out something else, often something a little bit dirty. And in Jackie Brown, Tarantino hid one of these same gags within a scene outside the Cockatoo Inn. That's because an exterior establishing shot shows the sign with the word "to" de-illuminated, leaving behind only Cocker and Inn. And gee, what does Cocker and Inn sound like? Of course, it kind of sounds like cocaine, which is a huge plot point in the movie. Number 12, Max learns to wash his hands. Tarantino loves to put little morsels of character development in his movies and little character details that have payoffs, even if they don't really matter at all to the plot. Case in point, when Ordell shows up in Max's office near the start of the movie, Max flushes the toilet and returns to his office, where Ordell jokingly admonishes him for failing to wash his hands. And hilariously, Max doesn't then go back and wash them, he just kinda sits there like a dirty But this actually pays off quite amusingly at the very end of the film when Jackie pays Max a visit, as here, after Max emerges from the toilet door, we can see him rubbing his hands together, presumably having finally learned that he needs to wash his hands after going to the bog. So yeah, Ordell may be many things, but at least he had a few tips on hygiene. Number 11, the Visible Cameraman. When Ordell argues with Jackie on his patio, keep close attention to the patio door, as you might have missed a little bit of a goof that happens during this scene. If you have paid close attention, you will have noticed the silhouette of the shot's cameraman being faintly visible in the reflection. Now ultimately, it's better to get a great shot even if it means including a mistake that 98% of people won't ever notice, but even so, it is an imperfect moment in a largely otherwise pretty perfect film. Number 10, Bridget Fonda watches a movie starring her father. Bridget Fonda plays the unforgettable part of Ordell's lover in the film, known as Melanie Ralston, who spends most of the film just glued to the couch and getting high. In one mid-film scene though, she's shown watching a movie which eagle-eyed viewers might identify as the 1974 crime drama Dirty Mary, Crazy Larry. Now, of course, this movie wasn't just randomly thrown on the screen by Tarantino, it was all intentional, as this flick in particular actually stars Bridget Fonda's father, Peter, who actually gets a thank you in the credits as well. Number 9, the racy photo of Ordell on his fridge. Near the start of the movie, Ordell takes a phone call in his kitchen, and we get a pretty clear view of his fridge, which initially might seem a little bit unremarkable, right? Well, look a bit closer. That's because the fridge itself has a photo of Samuel L. Jackson himself stuck on it, where he appears to be sitting naked in a bathtub while staring at the camera. Though we don't get a great close-up look at the photo, it's clearly a picture of a much younger Jackson, and many viewers online believe it to have been taken when Jackson was shooting his small but memorable role in Goodfellas back in 1989. Either way, what a delightfully strange Easter egg to just have in plain sight. Number 8, Pangria sings a song on the soundtrack. During the brief sequence where Jackie is shown being led to jail, you can actually hear the song Long Time Woman from the 1971 movie The Big Dollhouse. Interestingly, that film itself is centered around a group of women making it through daily life in a dingy prison. But beyond Tarantino's obvious affection for the genre this film belongs to, the real kicker here is that Pangria herself not only starred in The Big Doll House as one of its incarcerated ladies, but even sang the aforementioned song. And if you caught this Easter egg without any prodding from anyone, well done, that's incredibly obscure. Number 7, the $550,000 was real money. The overwhelming majority of time where you see money in movies, it's absolutely fake. They don't use real money for obvious security reasons. In fact, movie money also ends up being a little bit larger than real money or slightly altered so that it can't easily pass for legal tender if it's taken off set. But in the case of the $550,000 that Jackie smuggles into the US for Ordell, this was actually 100% real. Tarantino apparently insisted that prop master Steve Joyner managed to conjure up all of that money the hard way. And though the source of the moolah was never revealed, that is indeed a real stack of $550,000. Now you can probably assume that the person the money came from spent the entire shoot keeping their eyes on it every second of the day. You don't want to let that get out of your sight. Number 6, the extremely subtle Reservoir Dogs reference. During the mid-film sequence where Jackie, Ray, and Mark prepare to carry out a trial run of the money exchange, Ray says that the shopping bag for the handoff is purple, while Jackie and Mark both attest that it's actually white. Ultimately, the trio go back and forth before deciding who's right, eventually deciding to compromise, saying that the bag is white, though it does have a little bit of purple on it, and that the pink is the lettering. And this is an extremely sly nod to Reservoir Dogs, namely the memorable scene where Mr. White and Mr. Pink argue over Pink's desire to change his name to Mr. Purple, with White and Joe promptly shutting down his request. Number 5, Max is actually watching Jackie Brown the movie at the mall. Just before the dry run in the film, we see Max at the mall having just come out of a movie. And at this moment, we can hear the end credits music of the movie that he's just watched playing in the background. And the song itself is actually a track called Monte Carlo Nights from Jackie Brown's own original score. And the same song ends up playing over the movie that we're watching at a certain point in the second half. While this was clearly just a mischievous gag on Tarantino's part, given that the song was made specifically for this movie, we're kinda led to conclude that Max was somehow watching the movie Jackie Brown while acting himself in Jackie Brown. It's kind of wild, it's kind of meta when you think about it that way, and I like that, that's weird. Number 4, the Boozer Gag. When Jackie goes to Ordell's apartment, keep an eye on the names next to the buzzer outside of the apartments. That's because those names actually hold quite Easter eggy surprises. The first and probably most noticeable one is S. Hague, of course clearly a reference to Sid Hague, who we mentioned earlier. But 2 names lower is a much trickier one to make out, that being J. Hill, a nod to exploitation filmmaker Jack Hill, whose movies both Hague and Pangria appeared in throughout the 1970s. Basically, if you see any names written down in a Tarantino film, they will absolutely be referencing something or someone the director likes. Number 3, Danny DeVito possibly makes a cameo. Now this one technically counts as more of an urban legend, but it still is interesting. It's just, the thing is, it's never been confirmed one way or another by anyone involved in the production. But during the opening sequence where Jackie heads through the metal detector at the airport, a man who bears a distinct resemblance to Danny DeVito can be seen walking behind her for just a second or so. We never see the man's face admittedly, but his stature is reminiscent of DeVito's at the time. And given that DeVito himself was a producer on the movie, it's not entirely out of the question that he might have stopped by for a little quick cameo. And given that DeVito himself was a producer on Pulp Fiction, it's not entirely out the question that he would have stayed friends with Tarantino, might have even slipped in for a cameo in this film. Again, we don't know for certain one way or another, and this might just be a little bit of a silly one, but it's worth talking about now because this little bit of trivia has endured for 25 years at this point, and people still don't know one way or the other whether it's true. Number 2, the Acuna Boys. Tarantino clearly loves inventing fictional brands and then having them appear across all of his movies. But Jackie Brown birthed another cinematic tradition for the filmmaker, as when Jackie and Sharonda make the bag exchange at the mall's food court, note that Sharonda is drinking from a cup with the branding Acuna Boys. Now, the Acuna Boys as a name has appeared in a bunch of Tarantino movies since, but only one time as another soda when it was known as the Acuna Boys soda in Death Proof. Elsewhere, Kill Bill Volume 2 has Pimp Esteban running a crime ring called the Acuna Boys, and the Acuna Boys are seen in an intermission ad in Grindhouse. It's also worth noting that Tarantino didn't come up with the name, but actually lifted it from the central gang in the 1977 revenge film Rolling Thunder. Number 1. It technically has the lowest body count of any Tarantino movie. The majority of Tarantino's movies feature a whole bunch of death and violence, but surprisingly, Jackie Brown actually has the lowest body count of any Tarantino movie. Well, technically speaking, and we'll get to that in a second. The film features just 4 named character deaths, and while Kill Bill Volume 2 only technically features 3 deaths in its direct chronology, we also witness a flashback in that movie where the entirety of the bride's wedding party is slaughtered, which boosts the number significantly. Jackie Brown, however, is tied with Tarantino's most recent film, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which also features a total of 4 on-screen deaths. So, that's our list. I want to know what you guys think down in the comments below. How many of these Jackie Brown details did you already know and identify yourself? And does this give you a little bit of a craving to go back and rewatch it? I know it has for me, absolutely. While you're down there as well, could you please give us a like, share, subscribe? And if you like this, we've done a whole bunch of things you missed in other Tarantino movies, including Pulp Fiction, Reservoir Dogs, and the 2 Kill Bill movies, and they're all really good, and you should check them out, if I do say so myself anywhere. Even if you don't though, thank you so much for watching. I've been Josh, and I'll see you soon. Bye bye.